And what it do, folks? It is your boy Charles Younger here, and I am coming to you live for the Maryland Live at the Voice of College Football, as we want to talk a little bit about our previous game against the Washington Huskies. As you all know, Maryland did suffer its first loss against Washington, and it was not what the scoreboard shows, as Maryland did have a 20-0, 20-0 lead at the half, and somehow, some way, allowed Washington to come back and defeat them 20-4. I'm sorry, 24-20. Excuse me. Now, this game showed that Maryland, as well as they've played in their first few games, they have a lot to learn and a lot to work on moving forward. If you look at the numbers, the tail of the tape, Washington outgained Maryland 393 to 274. Outpassed them 275 to 219. Outrushed them 118 to 55. Now, if you think about that, that means if you're outrushed, the time of possession is definitely in the favor of the opposing team. And once again, Maryland did not have the time of possession in their favor, as Washington held onto the ball for 31 minutes and 4 seconds compared to Maryland's 28:56. Now, on the season, you have to be curious, like, what is going on with this Maryland roster of not being able to run the ball and maintain the run and somehow control the clock when it comes to these football games. Like I said, and on the season, Maryland has been outgained on the ground, as we bring it up here. Uh, excuse me, five. Maryland has rushed for 526 yards for 3.3 yards attempt. That is an average of 93.2 yards a game. As while the opponents have rushed for 668 yards on the on 184 attempts for 2.62 yards. Like I said, Maryland is preventing the other team from running the ball, but somehow cannot get the ball gain any yards on their own. As it shows here on the Maryland score on Maryland's webpage here, net yards. Even if you take a look at all the tackles for loss, net yards, Maryland 466, the opponents 484. Now, and Maryland has 5 rushing touchdowns, and of course, 2 or 3 of those by Malik. So Malik Washington, freshman quarterback for Maryland. And if you look at time of possession on the season, Maryland averages 28 minutes and 48 seconds, while their opponents average 31 minutes and 12 seconds. Again, time of possession is going to be a key of how this team is going to how it's going to progress down the line. And it is imperative that Maryland somehow figures out how to move the ball and somehow, control the clock. Because if you look at the numbers, Maryland surprisingly did well on one thing, third down, 9-17. They held Washington for 5 of 12. They held Washington 3.4 yards a carry on the season average, but on this game, averaged 2.8 yards a carry, probably season average. But Maryland is going to have to find a way to get these guys. Dewan Williams, Nolan Ray. These guys need to figure out how to open holes for these guys who are very good running backs, good size at 5, each going around 5'10" to 6 feet, 215 pounds each. Big physical running backs who can have explosiveness. They need to find a way to get these guys more invested. Because if you look at Malik, he threw the ball 49 times against Washington for only 219 yards. So he was averaging. It was averaging not, it was not very average per pass attempt. If you're throwing the ball 49 times, completing 30 of them, and only 218 yards. That's not going to cut it, partner. That is not what we need when it comes to a potent offense. And when we get to further down the stretch, we play more high power offenses in the Big Ten. Maryland's going to have to find a way to, protect Malik, run the ball, and have this defense, which has been pretty much lights out all season, stay fresh. Because as you can tell from this game, if you look at the first half compared to the second half, Maryland held Washington to the first drive, interception, second drive, punt, third drive, turnover on downs, fourth drive, punt, fifth drive, turnover on downs, and then the end of the half. While Maryland offense was field goal, touchdown, field goal, an interception, and then a missed field goal. And then you look at the second half, Washington was field goal, touchdown, 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 the end of game. While Maryland was touchdown, punt, 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 turnover on downs. So this is going to be one of those games moving into Nebraska where they're going to have to fix the second half stagnation of this offense, because the defense was doing its thing. It held its end of the bargain, but you could tell they were running out of gas towards the end. And also the ejection of linebacker Sidney Stewart, who is one of the best pass rushers in the Big Ten, also was a huge, devastating loss for this team moving forward. Now, post-game, we were able to get Lamont Jordan to talk to Mark Gray about some of the things that needs to happen for this team moving forward. So Lamont Jordan, for those who know, is a sideline reporter for the Maryland Radio Network, and he is also a legend of the game from the Maryland Terrapins, as he is one of our great runbacks of all time. So I am going to toss it to Mark Gray, who was with Lamont Jordan, and they're going to talk a little bit about this game, post-game this past Saturday.
This was supposed to be the night where the Maryland Terrapins defined themselves as a top 25 team. And for the first 30 minutes against the University of Washington, they looked like a team that we thought was ready to crack the national rankings. But in the second half, a strange thing happened. It was almost like it was a metamorphosis from other years. A team playing well suddenly forgets the game plan or can't execute. There were questions with discipline, things that we had not seen from a Maryland team this season. And they came back to bite them in the second half. And I think that in this particular instance, unlike a week ago against Wisconsin, where Maryland was able to impose its will on the Badgers for an entire game, what happened here in College Park was that the Washington Huskies imposed their will on the Terps in the second half. And that was the difference in the game. Daniel Wingate could not make enough big plays for them in the second half. And in one crucial situation where the perfect defense was called, Washington's quarterback is able to get outside the pocket, make a huge first down, and that effectively sealed Maryland's fate. So in a place where, as I'm walking into the game after calling a Division II football game play-by-play wise, I'm walking into the stadium at the half, and a lot of people were leaving thinking that the game is over. And the question becomes, in a town that is so fickle as it relates to college football, does the fan base take a step back and say, hey, is it same old Terps again? Which it's not. But still, when you see fans leaving and the team is up at the halftime and then the team kind of falls flat on its face after the second half, it's just the craziest moment, because this had been a season that for so long had been so perfect, and it was just a nightmarish night in early October. I'm Mark Gray, Professor G, for the voice of college football, Maryland Live. You know, with my man Lamont Jordan, who covers the Maryland football team from the sidelines for every game. It was a tale of two halves here in College Park. 20-0 up in the first half, and then suddenly, well, it happened. You had a bird's eye view for it. Where did it get away from the Terps this evening?
The second half, it's just Washington, they really picked up their intensity. I talked about it leading up to the game that we have to be able to contain their quarterback, and I think we did a great job of that in the first half. In the second half, he was able to escape. He was able to break free and make some plays. We gave up a couple of big plays. They were able to move the ball and hit some shots versus our zone. And when you think about just some of the injuries that we had, they were able to wear us down in the second half. But even with that said, one offensive score, maybe a few first downs, when you're playing against a team like Washington and you have a quarterback that's able to run all over the field, your offense, we can't go 3 and out, because when you go 3 and out, when your defense was just on the field, that's a lot of weight for the defense to bear. So the first half, Washington's defense didn't look like the team that I saw on film. In the second half, they were. I mean, those guys were flying around. They were batting down balls all game long. And so, this is we're fresh right after the game. So I'm still trying to process it all. But just a disappointing way to lose.
Yeah, you kind of took it as though you put on the shoulder pads and the helmet earlier today. I saw some great passes, though, that were dropped by Malik. Especially that last pass on fourth down in the fourth quarter. His numbers, when you look at his stats, kind of lie, don't they, about how well he played tonight?
I think he played well. I think there were a number of batted balls. So you don't know if that's on him. You don't know if it's on the offensive line, but there were a lot of batted balls. And so I'm sure Locks and Pep, they're going to go back and watch the film and see what can be done differently. But at the end of the game, when you need a play, he threw a dime in there, the ball was dropped. But you need to make a catch like that. When your quarterback in a big time situation drops a dime in there on you, you have to come up with that play. And when it's all said and done, in the second half, Washington made the plays that they needed to make, and we just didn't.
And for all we talk about Malik in the passing game, what happened with the running game this evening? I mean, it seemed to just get stuffed. It wasn't able to, for lack of a better term, get out of its own way.
First half, I thought we ran the ball pretty well. I mean, we were making some hay in the run game. Like I said, the second half, Washington just stepped their game up. And as an offense, when you go 3 and out, I believe it was 3 consecutive drives in a row, that's just not a position that you want to be in. With that said, this is one of those losses where, as a team, first of all, as an individual, you have to go back in there and look at yourself and say, okay, what could I have done differently? If you're a backup and you had an opportunity to play, especially on the defensive side of the ball, specifically the defensive line, you're probably kicking yourself because maybe you didn't take advantage of an opportunity. And so this is one of those games where you look at yourself as a player, you go back and you evaluate as a coach. But then from there, you have to get ready for your next opponent. This is one of those games where either you're going to grow from it and it's going to take you to the next level where now you know that I got to stay locked in for 4 quarters, or this is one of those things where you just marinate in it and it just destroys your whole season.
Interesting that you bring that up, because this was probably the first time all season that we saw questions of discipline, gestures that may have been marginal, but they still ended up costing a personal foul at a difficult moment in the game. What do you make of that, having seen what transpired on the sidelines?
It happens. You don't want those things. I mean, I've seen guys, put the sword away plenty of times and not get flagged for it. And so that was a head scratcher for me because it was a big moment in the game. With that said, even after that moment, Washington still came out and made plays to come back and win the game. So, we could point to this and we could point to that, but the reality is that at the end of the day, we didn't play for 4 quarters. And because we didn't play for 4 quarters, we didn't walk away with the win. And so 4-1 is great, but 5-0 would have been even better. And so I think come and I said this on the post game, I think come Monday, Tuesday, you start to shift your thinking to Nebraska. You're thankful that you are 4-1 because there are a lot of teams around the country who aren't in this position, and then you just focus on Nebraska.
So where do they have to get better? Because the stretch that you're in right now is rush to a potential championship game experience as far as the conference is concerned, college football playoffs, or a bowl game. How does this team, in your opinion, go about resetting after a tough loss?
I think you just get back to your foundation. That's all. You get back to what had you coming into this game undefeated. You go back, you watch the film, you correct the mistakes, you have tough skin. As a coach, you go back and see, where you could have either called the game differently. I do think that we have to do better in our zone because Washington was able to move the ball. They were finding major holes in our zone from a defensive standpoint. So you have to go back and correct those things. But this is the game of football. And this is the great thing about playing football during the course of a season is that our games are so close together that you play in a game every week, and the attention to detail that's needed, it allows you to kind of forget. You have to forget about this game after a day or two and then start focusing on your next opponent. So I'm really excited to see what these guys are going to give us come next week. This is a high-character football team. This is a group of great young men, and they play together. I don't see a bunch of such selfish guys, which, to be honest with you, last year I felt like there was a bunch of selfish guys out there. Hopefully we can get healthy this week. And Locks is going to get things straight this week, and we'll see what type of product these guys put out in the field next week.
And one of the things we've talked about all season since even camp started was the character of the entire roster. And when a team is built on character, they should be able to bounce back from adversity. I'm suggesting that's the case next week against Nebraska.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, listen, this is football, man. There are too many details that go into this game for yourself to saturate yourself in a loss like this. Now, during the end of the season, once the season is over and you sit back and you reflect, you can spend a little more time with it. But tonight is going to be tough for these guys. It's going to be tough for these guys tonight. It's going to be tough for these guys tomorrow. And to be honest with you, it's going to be tough for these guys come Monday. But once you get to Tuesday night and you get into your Wednesdays and your Thursday and your Friday, it's all about focusing on Nebraska.
Yeah, and to your point, I just don't get the feeling that this team is going to lie in its own pity, if you will, for something like that. I think that this may be the edge after all the wonderful things that we've been saying about them that kind of resets or calibrates the season, right?
You have too much ahead of you to allow yourself to just sit right now in this moment. And Ben playing for Locks, he's going to hold these guys accountable. He's going to hold himself accountable. He's going to hold the coaching staff accountable. But there's too much ahead of you. There's way too much ahead of you for you to allow your season to end because of the way this game ended. I mean, listen, let me just call it what it is. It's beyond disappointing. Like we as a team today, we dropped the ball. That's just what it comes down to. But I'm going to continue to say it. You come back, you watch the film, you hold yourself accountable as a player, you hold yourself accountable as a coach, you go in and you make the necessary adjustments, and then you move on from it.
So in your opinion, as a person who's been on the sideline, where the character of the game is every week, that this team is built on a different kind of plateau, so to speak, and this is just a bump in the road.
Yeah, this is just a bump in the road. That's all it is. The one in the past, I can say that I've seen some teams quit. These guys never stop playing hard, and that speaks to the character of these guys. So I'm not worried about them moving forward. We just have to take it one game at a time. This upcoming week is one practice at a time, and then you just come out here. You allow this to fuel you for the remainder of the season. This is one of those things where this is almost like a life lesson. The Word of God, it says finishing is better than starting.
Right.
So we started today, we just didn't finish. Now this kind of sets it. You allow this to set a root, a nice strong root in your mind that as long as there's time on that clock, you don't get time to celebrate. You let the fans celebrate, but as long as there's time still left on the clock, you're locked in on a task in hand until that clock shows all zeros and the game is over.
So, inquiring Terp fan wants to know right now how long it's going to take you to get over it, because you're hurting right now. I saw you coming up the steps, and it was like you had been through a game in the AFC East.
Yeah, man, because it hurts, man. Playing for Locks, I want Locks to be very successful, and the reality is there are people who are rooting against him. And when you're up 20-0 and you lose this game right now without the tears, and I'm older now also, and my career is behind me. I almost got that UVA feeling.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got that UVA feeling in me right now because I see how hard these guys work.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the significance of being 5-0,
right,
or being 4-1, especially being 4-1 because you lost the game the way you lost it. So I'm gonna spend some time on the fishing pier.
Okay.
I'm allow nature to just soothe me over a little bit.
Soothing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna let nature soothe me over, and then I'm gonna, I'm gonna look forward to some NFL football.
Coach Prime used to do that when they lost in Atlanta. Okay. Find him a fishing hole. So if it works for him, it works for you.
Oh no, I'm going to find. I need the bay tonight. There's no fishing hole, no lakes. No, I need to get out there in the bay, and really just sit with this. But this is football, man. This is why football is the greatest sport. You have the highs, you have your lows, but the good part about it is that this was our 5th game of the season. And these guys will be blessed to play another one next week.
There's still 5 more to go in the season. He is the Terp legend, Lamont Jordan. We can't thank him enough for his time.
And we cannot thank him enough for his time, as Lamont Jordan is that dude who is the sideline reporter for Maryland Radio. And he's right. This is a tough loss for the Terrapins. The defense played lights out. I mean, you have guys who are just all over the field making tackle machines. You have, if you look at the numbers here, Cam Smith had 11 total tackles. Daniel Wingate had 10 tackles. Reddick, 8 tackles. Gasker, 7. Joyner, 5. Scruggs, 5. Husky had 5. And also that interception. This team defensively can compete with some of. Washington is one of those classic West Coast offenses. Not West Coast offenses like these 49ers, but the college West Coast, like, explosive on the outside, explosive players on the outside, speed, spread you out and run you to death. And Maryland showed that they can hang with the speed. They have the speed to hang with anybody in the league. Now the question is, like I said, the offense has to do their part and keeping the defense off the field so they can stay fresh and not be worn down as they were against Washington this past Saturday. So Maryland's going to have a lot to work on moving forward as they do host Nebraska next week. They travel to California and knows how to party for UCLA, and then the big game, home, hosting Indiana for homecoming. Get your tickets now, ladies and gentlemen. But another thing that Mark was talking about is I also arrived at the game a little bit after halftime and noticed that there were tons of people leaving, a legit sellout crowd. And at halftime, you're leaving the game. I don't know where you're going. What you got to do? Well, it's Saturday. It's game day. You took the time to go down to the park, baseball still in my mind right now, to the stadium to watch your team, whether you're a student, alumni, or just a general fan, and you're going to leave at halftime. The game's only 20 nothing. It's not like the game's over. Anything can happen. As we saw, anything did happen as Washington scored 24 points in the second half to basically in this game against the Maryland Terrapins, who decided to not want to score at all in after that last touchdown in the third, and some plays. So many times they left points on the field. There are some drops. There were some bad, 9 for 17 with third down conversions is good, but the ones they didn't convert are the ones that are going to come back and haunt them the most. And those are the ones where the points were left on the field. How are you going to have Jalen Husky intercept the ball, return it down to I would say almost like the 5 yard line? Let me go back to the numbers here. Um, Jalen Husky intercepted the ball, and the Terps had the ball for 4 plays, 5 yards in 54 seconds, and were held to a field goal. That right there is unacceptable. You have to, in the words of Newt from Bull Durham, you got to announce your presence of authority. You were given a gift by a senior leader in Jalen Husky, a veteran on this team who is a leader on this team, put you guys in the position to score, and you did not score. You were held to a Sean O'Hare field goal. Thank goodness for Sean O'Hare, who is a solid kicker, who has been making most of his kicks this year. It was good to have someone like that in case you don't score, you still get some points. But Maryland had to do a better job of converting. I mean, 4 scoring drives, but only 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. That's not going to cut it. I said, partner, that's not going to cut it. And look on the season. You want to talk about red zones? 21 times in the red zone, only 9 touchdowns. Now, I'm going to bring up my old calculator here and do a little math. 9 divided by 21 is 42.9% touchdown percentage in the red zone, and 18 scores in 21 attempts, which is a 85.7% scoring rate in the red zone. You need to get that overall scoring rate over 90 and a touchdown rate over 60 in order to compete in the Big Ten, because that is not going to cut it. Now, miraculously, the defense has only allowed teams to get to the red zone 13 times, and 4 touchdowns allowed in the red zone for 30%, 30.1%, and 8 scores overall at 62%. So Maryland is going to have a lot of work to do. As I said, they host Nebraska at 3:30 Saturday, October 11th, on the Big Ten Network at SECU Stadium in College Park. And on that note, we're going to have to bid you adieu as we have done our recap of Maryland's game against Washington, as they had lost to Washington 24-20. And stay tuned to us on Friday as we do our pregame preview of Maryland football here on Maryland Live on the Voice of College Football. I am your host, Charles Younger. You can follow me across all social media platforms at Charles Younger. That's CharlesNYonga. And that is going to be how you can follow me, interact with me on social media. Just talk Maryland sports, talk all sports. And also, you can see me talking a little bit of baseball. It is the Major League Baseball postseason. And we had to talk about the Yankees. Oh my goodness, they didn't work. But like I said, tune in on Friday as we get back to our normal schedule of Maryland Live at the Voice of College Football. Like I said, I am your host, Charles Yoga, and we will see you soon.